Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a really cool, just a knife overview and discussion to share with you guys. This is the legendary ZT-0999, and no, not the 0990, because I know a lot of you are looking at this and going, what's so special about that? I've seen that. That's like the one that's got the steel frame that everybody was upset about. No, this is the original from 2015 as part of their limited edition runs. Some people might call these factory customs. But this is the original guy, much larger. This is all titanium, carbon fiber. And then we have it's a laminated steel where you have a different steel on the spine than the actual cutting edge. We're going to talk all about that, but this is a really cool knife, a very, very expensive knife. A lot of people are going to call this the unicorn for the ZT line because they are extremely unobtainable, extremely expensive. Before we start talking about it, thanks so much to this person right here. Otterpops the Disking Dog, I'm not really sure how to pronounce that. Thanks for sending this in, letting me take a look at it. I would otherwise, it's very unlikely I'd ever get my hands on something like this for review. And yes, this will go back to him, but just because of this person that I'm able to bring you this type of content. So please give them a follow. It's also because of my generous patrons. Thanks for supporting me. There's a link for Patreon right down below. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Still in a spot where my voice is not perfect yet, so sorry. We're just going to kind of power through. So this was a knife that was, I'm going to bring this out here so you guys can take a look. This won Blade Magazine's American-Made Knife of the Year award in 2015, which is pretty cool. Yeah, this is a knife from 2015. It's long gone. This is that type of knife that sort of stirs up comments like, oh my gosh, that's so ugly. Or, wow, that's like the most amazing thing I've ever seen, right? There's heavy contrast in stuff like this. It just naturally sparks those types of emotional responses, How much did this knife originally go for? It went for $750. And whether or not you find that offensive, whether or not you personally would pay that much for that, in a way, it doesn't really matter because it's gone. It's not available anymore. And when it does become available, much to the frustration of those people who would never pay that much, it goes for much more than that. Fortunately, none of us are bound by chain to purchasing this, so you can simply ignore that it exists if it bothers you. But it's one of those things that just does, it just is. The older ZTs, especially the older special edition ZTs, are super duper valuable, not just because they made very few of them. It's not just because of that, and not just because, a lot of times it's like collaborations with knife makers that they don't do anymore. But I think a lot of it is because knives like ZT does not do stuff like this anymore. They paid homage to it with the 0990, but that, again, considering that ZT, makes knives in the USA and manufacturing costs are super duper high in the USA, there's no way. A lot of people think like they should just make exactly this and charge us, $200 for it. They can't do that. It's not possible. This type of thing is not going to be created for $200 in the United States. It's just not possible. There's too much going on here. There's too much work involved with it, and it's just not something that they're going to be able to do and then mass produce for everybody to get their hands on. I do wish that the newest one, the 0990, was at least in titanium. It really bothered me that the frame was steel, but yeah. Let's go ahead and I'm going to do a measurement. Again, this is not a review. It's pointless to review something that has come and gone and is just not available anymore. But I will give you, those of you who might be seeking this knife out on the secondary market, I will give you information that might be helpful. The overall length of the 0999 is coming in at a whopping 9.5 inches. Wow. Blade length coming in has about 4. Same with the cutting edge, 4 inches. Materials. Actually, I'm sure a lot of you guys maybe paused this, but we have a spine composition of CPM D2. No, that's not the same thing that the $50 Chinese knives are made out of. That's American Crucible Powder Metallurgy D2. And then CTS 204P, which is a Carpenter steel, the equivalent of M390. So you have the, I guess, some of the, when they do this, you can see there that I think it's a copper line that separates the compositions. You get, I guess, some of the structural benefits of D2, because that's going to be quite a bit tougher, maybe more impact. I don't know. I honestly don't know the benefits, right? Because it's the edge that's going to be taking the brunt of the impact, and it's going to be taking all of the, all of the abrasion interaction when you're cutting, right? I don't know. It's just kind of neat how they did this. There's a lot of details here. CPM D2 and CTS 204P, certainly expensive to do that, and those are not cheap materials. CPM D2 is actually fairly expensive, not quite as expensive as CTS 204P, but pretty expensive. So the materials that we're using here, in the blade are those two, but then there's also carbon fiber, and that's probably also steel in the insert there. I'll let you guys take a look at that. Really interesting how they lay that all in there. And the milling work, the machine work alone is just crazy. The amount of detail and accuracy in this, it's really, ZT really is, and I don't want to say was, they are capable of this type of really intricate milling and machining work. So this is really impressive. So then for the handle, we have very complex pieces of titanium, and then carbon fiber that is sort of, that parts of the titanium are actually laid into the carbon fiber. And so all of those pieces have to be machined perfectly to sort of fit together and achieve this aesthetic. Weight, I don't know, it still feels like a 6.5. It feels like it's 5.5 to 6.5 ounces. Let's find out. Ooh. Yeah, I gave myself quite a range there, so it's not really that impressive, but 6.42 ounces. It's a big knife, right? For some people, too big to carry, but, let's all remember that this simply is, even though at base it's a cutting tool, this is for the most part a collector's item at this point, right? And that's going to bother the user community, but just remember, if we're going to relate this to an enthusiast community that is much easier to accept, a lot of people collect cars and don't drive them. So you're just going to have to deal with the fact that people like to collect knives. So yeah, that's primarily what these things, I'm sure there are people out there who carry and use their own 999, right? But most people who acquire these are probably not using them. So too big for the pocket? Probably not going to be seeing a lot of pockets. That's my guess. Excuse me. Okay. Next up, I would normally measure the blade stock thickness. I'm not going to do that. I can tell you right now, though, that's probably 155,000. ZT really liked that blade stock thickness back in 2015. Hardware, I can tell you, just by looking at it, we have a T8 pivot. Not going to touch it, obviously. And then we have T6 body screws and a whole bunch of them. How easy would it be to disassemble? I'm going to guess that you'd have to take off these. Obviously, I'm not going to do that. You'd have to take these overlays off. And then the titanium is it's two pieces. You can see how it connects back here. This titanium piece and then this titanium piece. At least that's the way that this whole thing except for this side. So this side is all this big one piece that also connects to the Backspacer, which is really cool. I really like how they did it. It's not an integral knife, but it's really cool. And then we have a smaller piece of titanium that's acting as the other part of the sandwich construction here, and also housing the internals for the pivot. Really, really cool. So I don't know the hardware check. Obviously, we're skipping everything else there. So I think we can just kind of jump into it. This is really a thing to behold. And while at base, a lot of people say it's just a bunch of titanium and carbon fiber. You can get that for a block. This takes a totally different form. We have some amazing, super intricate machine work. Would this knife sell for $750 today, it might, but it's, a bunch of people are going to be mad about it, right? For $750, like, we are approaching Shirogorov territory. We are in Herman territory. This is really, really nice. I guess I don't quite feel the same level of quality that I get with a Shirogorov or a Herman. I don't know if our manufacturing costs are higher than Poland for Herman or Russia for Shirogorov. I'm going to guess manufacturing costs in the U.S. are a bit higher, right? I've handled knives with this, not quite this level of insanity. A lot of people say, well, Elijah Isham does stuff like that. Well, you know, yeah, but those designs are often made by we in China. So the manufacturing costs are a lot lower. And if I'm being honest, I'm getting a little bit more from this overall quality and presentation, fitment, polish, all of that. Quite a bit more than what we brings to the table with some of Elijah Isham's stuff. So am I trying to justify that $750 price tag? I don't know. I mean, I guess I can kind of see how they got there. It still kind of feels like, because it still feels like a ZT, right? It just feels like a special, it feels like a step up from a ZT, right? I don't know. It doesn't really matter, though. I mean, this thing sells for so much more on the secondary market. If they brought it back today, I'm sure they'd sell them. You just have a whole bunch of people who are super furious because it's easy to look at this as a ZT with carbon fiber and titanium. But it really is substantially above that. This is really, truly impressive work. And the action is nice. It's not quite fall shut, but it's nice and smooth and consistent. It has a nice snap to it, right? Whole thing just, it feels like I'm holding on to a spaceship. It really is. It's just like, it feels like something that was part of a spaceship from the future. Almost like fancy space garbage. The edges and corners are all nicely knocked down, and the pocket clip is flat. In fact, it's not contoured. You can see there, just kind of chamfers off to one side, and then it's like, I don't know if it's like feathering, but the titanium is textured right there. It's not pointy. It looks like an object that would be really, really angular and comfortable to hang on to, but you know, the truth is, it's actually super duper comfortable. And the handle is so big, and there's no specific spot on the knife where they're like, you have to put your fingers here, right? They kind of suggest up here, but it's so big and comfortable, and the edges are so nicely knocked down. I mean, look at this. It really is pretty easy to get a nice, comfortable grip on it. This area, nicely knocked out for disengagement. Seriously? My iPad is trying to listen to me. I said it's because they thought I said Siri. Anyways, what was I saying? Oh, yeah, nice area right here. Sorry, fingers on the lock bar. Nice area right here to disengage the lock bar. No double clutch or anything like that. Just a little bit of encouragement. So this is the area right here. This is the stop. It's not a pin. It's just a stop bar made of titanium. And I guess the reason that ZT did the 0990, the newer one, in steel is because they were worried about the impact that this would have on titanium. Titanium is really strong. Like the strength to weight ratio of titanium is very, very strong, or very, very good. And it also is not going to corrode. So it's great as like a frame material, but there's a reason that stop pins are usually steel, or sometimes they're tungsten carbide, is because they can resist the impact of the blade tang over and over and over again. Titanium's pretty soft. So on this guy, with this being a collector's piece, right, probably felt a lot safer about that impact thousands and thousands of times over the course of its life. But for something that was much less expensive, produced in much higher quantities, and meant to actually be taken out and beat on, while the titanium probably would have survived for the most part, they went with steel, I guess, so that it would survive that impact. And then also as an added bonus, their cost was much lower. Excuse me. But anyways, I mean, it is what it is. It's nice that this is titanium. This does not appear to be warping in any way. You can see right here. Here's the impact marks so far. This thing is basically brand new though, so keep in mind, I'm zooming way up. This thing has maybe been flipped, I don't know, less than 100 times, right? So there's the marks, the impact marks. I can't feel them. It doesn't feel like they're, like creating little pits or anything like that. But sorry, we need to go backwards. I don't know. I'm just letting you guys know. I'm just showing you. Oh, boy. The blade definitely is the most impressive part. The blade is absolutely just spectacular. And ZT, I'll tell you, ZT's satin finish is really nice. I really am sick of satin finishes. But there's a if it's going to be a belt satin finish, there's a nice belt satin finish, and then there's a real crappy belt satin finish where you see the lines as if they like took it off the belt and started in a new place. So you have these inconsistent marks. This is nice. It's just the same thing all the way down. And most ZT, like if those of you who have got your ZT0562CF or TI right in front of you, it's that same exact type of finish. It looks pretty nice. No belt burn, discoloration, right? If you're holding a knife right now, it's got a satin finish on it, belt satin finish, and there are parts that appear bronze. It's belt burn, where there's too much pressure applied and it's just friction built up, causes it to almost burn the surface of the blade, I guess, and it just looks crappy. But this looks all right. As far as satin finishes go, this looks really good. The contrast between that copper line, the carbon fiber, and the steel on the inside of the insert just looks really good. This does have a steel lock bar insert, doubling as the over travel stop, so that's nice. There is absolutely no blade play up, down, left, or right. There's no pivot lash. Detent click is nice, no detent lash. This is real nice. What you'd expect from like a special edition ZT, factory custom. It's essentially perfect. It feels like 2015, right? If they were going to bring something like, if ZT was going to do something like this again, I don't know. Again, it's hard because people are like, ZT should do that again. Well, it's not like they're like, all right, we're going to do it, and we're going to reduce the price to 1/3 of what it used to be. No, that's not going to happen, right? There's not a market. I don't know if there's enough of a market for people looking for $750 ZTs, right? And their costs are going to be even higher now versus 2015. So it's not, if they bring things like this back, it's going to be in homage forms like the 0990. That'd be my guess. This is really cool, and this is, no matter what you think of it, it just is and will continue to be one of the most legendary ZT knives out there. And it's really interesting. There is no reason for anyone to seek this knife out because the thing here is for $750, there's a lot of other, like let's say that this was on eBay right now for $750. It's not. But let's say it was. Would I be tempted to pay $750 for this? No. There's a lot of other stuff I'd rather have for $750. What it actually goes for, I have no idea. A lot more than $750, right? Especially, it's going to go for more than that, even if it's been used a little bit, my guess would be. But brand new and in perfect condition like this guy, way more. Only people who are going to be tempted to pick this up are ZT collector enthusiasts who are building a collection of all of these ultra rare, collector's items. These ZTs that come with the certificates of authenticity, because there are definitely, there are lots of like ZT limited edition collectors out there that are picking up these things that ZT used to do, which, my opinion, is that this was a much more interesting time for zero tolerance. This is the type of stuff this is the time period where I started to become. It wasn't, like my first venture into the knife world, but this is the type of stuff that got me like, oh man, I am definitely a knife enthusiast, right? I can't afford that. I can't dream to afford it, but my God, is that just super cool, right? So yeah, this is a time period that I remember fondly, and I know a lot of you guys too. You guys do too. If you're newer to the knife world, you might not care. You might not, you might look at this and go, why the heck would anyone want, But this is just, it's more along the lines of the ZT that I remember. And I do wish that they would do, not like, I'm not saying do exactly this and I want it for less. No, I just want, bigger knives with this, the more chunky aesthetic, more interesting, just like heavy duty, aggressive aesthetic, right? It's not the direction that they're going, and they probably know what they're, if it's working for them, then they know what they're doing, right? But this is the type of, these are the ZTs that I remember fondly and just, I miss, right? It's kind of nostalgic. Very cool. Not something that I would pick up. If you're a ZT collector, be ready to pay. It's going to cost you a lot more than $750. It just is. Very cool, though. Happy to have this as part of the ZT Knives playlist on my YouTube channel. I've got a whole playlist of ZT knives, and I sort of, while I don't collect ZT knives as a YouTube knife reviewer, I certainly do sort of collect the videos that I create. Like, I like to, get as many, since I have such a soft spot in my heart for ZT, they have their own playlist, and I really like knocking out these really rare ones and having a video on them. Functionally, for those few, for like the 5 people watching this video wondering, if I go ahead, let's say I find one of these and I pay well over $1,000 for it, and then I plan to use it, would it work? I mean, yeah, I have no idea how strong, like when we have this sort of copper weld between 2 different steel compositions, I would imagine it's very strong, right? Like if you were to cut into something and sort of twist, or do like a twist cut or a pry cut, I don't know. I mean, if it's gonna fail, it's got a lot of, whether it's a copper line or this big open hole in here, I don't know. I would say don't use your knife for stuff that's not a knife task, right? I feel like the titanium is robust enough, there's enough surface contact that this would never be a problem. I kind of just don't like the fact that ZT uses steel on the new ones. So I don't think you'd ever have an issue with that. It's going to be a big, gigantic, bulky item to carry around in your pocket, but you'll have the satisfaction of whipping out a ZT 0999 every time Amazon sends you some dumb thing that you need to open, right? Which is, I get it. It's just, you got to ask yourself, like, how much do I want to pay for that experience? Very cool stuff. Really cool piece of history from Zero Tolerance Knives, and pretty cool that it won Knife of the Year, American Knife of the Year in 2015 for Blade Magazine. Anyways, I don't think that there's any other information on this that I really need to cover. I was looking at this piece right here where it says one-piece titanium frame lock and backspacer, and what that means is it's not integral. It means the lock side and the backspacer is all one piece, which while it's not integral, I just want to point this out, the 22-minute mark. Well, it's not all one piece of titanium. That there still is a lot of risky machining involved with that. If you think about how perfect all of this needs to be in one shot, they need to machine the lock bar, the non-show side, right, where it accepts pieces like the pocket clip, the carbon fiber. Then it actually wraps back around. You have the backspacer back here, and this comes up and is also the stop. So this one piece of titanium is responsible for like the pivot hardware and assembly, the matching, and accepting other pieces, the other side of the frame, right, and the stop pin, right? That's a lot of really expensive machining. That might help drop that shadowy puzzle piece into place for a lot of people going, why? I just don't get it. Why? A lot of people say, well, titanium's not that expensive, and it's really not that expensive to machine. It depends, though. It depends on what level of, machining you are doing, right? The starting block of titanium and exactly what you're doing, exactly how perfect it has to be, how many pieces have to fit into it, right? Certainly, even if at base, titanium is not that expensive and not that expensive to machine, the longer it takes or the more complex the machine work is, the price starts to go up, right? ZT, obviously, not being a company that's just in it for charity, they still wanted to make money off of it, right? So that's part of how we arrive at a $750 price tag, or at least back in 2015. Anyways, I think I've talked long enough. Like I said, this isn't a review. No matter how many times I say that, people are like, this wasn't a good review. It's not a review. It doesn't make any sense to review a knife like this. It's more so just a discussion, observations, show and tell, presentation, whatever you want to call it. Thanks again to this person right here on Instagram. Make sure you give them a follow. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.